the Going to College Education Podcast, in association with Quality and Qualifications Ireland, QQI, promoting quality and accountability in Irish education and training.
Hello and welcome to the Going to College podcast series with me, Ola Majekodunmi, and brought to you in association with QQI. This two-part series will help you to prepare for a busy few weeks ahead as you weigh up your college choices and get ready for an exciting life in college. For this first episode, the CAO Round 1 offers are out finding out what courses are up and what ones are down, and what your options are if you didn't get one for. And joining me with their expert advice and information is Donnchadh O'Mahony, Guidance Counsellor at Loreto College and host of the Leaving Cert Guidance podcast, Guidance Counsellor Aoife McArdle from the Institute of Education, and Colette QQI's Awards and Certification Manager. You're all very welcome to the show. What have we learned from the CAO offers today? We have seen a massive rise, am I correct?
A massive rise in what we saw today. We're looking at 23 courses over 600 points. We're looking at 4 courses at 625 points with little asterisks beside those, which means not everybody that got to the 625 points and met the entry requirements was actually offered a place. And this is very, very disappointing for students. And I feel really bad for students today who hit the top marks in their Leaving Cert and didn't get their dream course that they really wanted.
It really means that we're seeing a lot of students who are disappointed and not getting offers that they were hoping to get. I think there was elation the other day with excellent results. And then there's been a real come down to earth today with really disappointing offers for many students, even with outstanding results. Not getting their first choice offers. And I think, as Donnchadh mentioned, the 625 with a random selection is particularly cruel because there's literally nothing else they could have done getting that maximum points. And then we see it across the board, Ola, right down with I know that 625 is the elite students, but the students in the 300s and 400s as well, we're really seeing massive jumps there as well in many courses. So very disappointing day for a lot of students, and our heart goes out to them today.
Colette, I'll come to you next. What happens to students if they don't get the results they want?
Well, I suppose I was going to say I fully appreciate it's a disappointing day, and it's very hard then for students to be listening to people like us saying, look at something else. But there is something else. There are plenty of options out there. And I think there's a very big national focus always on Leaving Cert to CAO to college, but there are many options. And while students often focus on, I must do a level 8, and they talk about the national framework very fluently, they talk about level 8s, level 7s. So they know what students are very clear on what they want, but there are many ways of getting there. And so now after this disappointment, and I'm agreeing with Donnchadh and Aoife, there's obviously going to be a lot of disappointment, but maybe now after a couple of days when you're over the hurt and the upset, that you look and you see what other options there are. And there are options of looking at colleges of further education, which offer extremely good entry routes into college by another door. Someone said to me once, you mean by the back door? I said, no, it's another door. And we need to accept that there are other doors. There are other doors in apprenticeships in different, very challenging areas, from property management to sales, marketing, a wide variety, including very technical engineering ones. So there are routes. It may not be today that you'll think of them, but if you stand back a little bit from the disappointment of this and say to yourself, I think maybe there's another way.
In saying that, Colette, do you think our schools generally do put enough emphasis on there being other options?
No, I think if I was honest, I think career guidance teachers do a really good job, and they try and encourage people to do that. But I suppose it's built into people's thinking that it's the Leaving Cert straight into college. But there are many stories. I was only reading a story the other day, actually, in Independent.ie about a student called Niamh, and she did very disappointed. She was exactly in this position today, distraught, as she freely admitted, when she reset her thinking and she did a further education course and developed her skills that made her first year in college, when she got there, and she did get there, much easier for her. She had the skills built up. So I think perhaps the routes that are available may not be publicised as much. So it was good to see articles like that and other discussions about people doing apprenticeships in insurance industry, banking, and so on. So it is about getting the word out there, isn't it? And these success stories, these happy, good news stories, even if it is a day generally of people being, disappointed with the offer they've got at the moment.
Donnchadh, Aoife, we've also seen a rise in the level 6 and 7 courses. Is this a trend that is set to continue, do you think?
I don't think so. I think it's for the year that's in it, with the rise in grades from the Leaving Cert. I think that's attributed to everything. But don't get me wrong, the level 6 and 7 are great opportunities for students. And I often encourage students who are not too sure about college to say, look at the level 6, 7, because say after 2 years, you don't fancy this college course, at least you'll have an exit award when you're leaving. Or maybe you do really like it and I'm going to try the level 7 for an additional year and maybe even on to the level 8. But if you don't, you'll still have exit awards after this. But I don't think this year, even though there are rises in it.
Can I just pick up, Ola, just on the question of level 6 and 7? We mentioned earlier the drive towards level 8 all the time. Donnchadh is quite correct. The level 6 option in college, the level 7 option are very viable options for people. And while they do leave with an award, they leave with a qualification on the framework that they can take to employment or, as Donnchadh mentioned, further study. It may be in different areas even. So they are really important options for people to look at if they are really disappointed today. What did they get offered on level 6 and 7? Maybe that's a way.
Aoife, are there extra places that can help take the heat off students in the system this year?
There are, but I think fewer than we would normally see, but there certainly are available places. And I think it's one of many options that's available. And I think it's really important that disappointed students contact their guidance counsellor and talk through those different options with them, because we're available to help them talk through all those different options that there are. And it is one available route, but there are quite a few.
I suppose there was 4,500 additional places brought on this year. However, there was a rise maybe in, I think it was 8,000 applicants to the CAO. So even the additional places didn't weigh up the amount of applicants we got. And even with the applicants we got, I know there was an additional 5,000 from the EU this year that we wouldn't normally get because of Brexit. But I think even with our high grading system this year, that it might even have eliminated some of those EU students going to take those places.
Going forward now for students, what would you say is the best advice for them right now if they're not happy with their results, if they're panicking about what CAO offer to take? What would your best advice be? I'll go to Aoife first.
I would say speak to their guidance counsellor about all the different options. There are so many. We can look at PLCs and QQI options. We can look at private colleges. We can look at available places. We can look at a gap year and applying again next year, either to UCAS, to Europe, through the CAO. There's so many different options. And I think it's really important to put this in perspective. I know it's a very disappointing day for many, but it's not a big thing in the grand scheme of life. So it is important to have perspective and to have hope. There's so many other options.
And there's even still options available, as Aoife said, through UCAS and through Europe, even this year. So UCAS, we still have the clearing system, which is available if students want to go on and have a look at that. That's basically like our available places, where they have almost like this massive sale of college places in the UK that they couldn't fill up. And it's the same with Europe. There's still some colleges taking applicants for different courses right around Europe. So have a look at those as well.
Colette, as you mentioned earlier, college isn't the only option for students. There are students that also want to do apprenticeships. How do students go about this? And how do they realise maybe that college might not be the best option for them?
Yeah, again, I think it's back to career guidance counsellors displaying the options. As Aoife mentioned there, that's your port of call. Talk to people to see what the options are. There's a lot of very good information available. There'll be a lot of their local further education college doing open days, and there an awful lot of further education students stay local. They don't have to travel to Cork and whatever else. They often stay quite local in their local college, and they have a wide range of options there. So I would say check out what's locally available, first of all, and see what the options are, and have a good talk to people, and even people who went through this process before, to see it as a viable option. And again, the career guidance teachers are invaluable. There's always an awful lot of useful supplements in the paper and all that. So I think the question is, stand back and just take a little bit of time and have a think about what the next steps are.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think the apprenticeships were overhauled in 2015, kind of away from your traditional electrician, carpenter. They're obviously still available, but newer ones in finance, insurance, real estate, science, computers, you can actually get a level 8 degree in some of these while you're earning as you're studying. So for some courses, you can earn up to €25,000 in your first year, while also completing a level 8 degree. I know there's level 8 in insurance, there's level 8 in recruitment, and many other possibilities as well. So you're not restricting yourself from getting a level 8 degree or financially putting a burden on yourself by going to college. And myself and Aoife have spoken about this before. I suppose the real pro is getting that college experience is the difference for the apprenticeship, but certainly the apprenticeship is a viable option. And yes, chat to someone in your local ETB, they'll have all the information. I see the Lee Shoffley ETB very recently were advertising for heavy goods vehicle drivers. Apparently Ireland needs 4,000 HGV drivers today, and there's about 100,000 required right around Europe. So there's such a broad spectrum of apprenticeships opportunities for students.
What about students then that did not put down level 6 or 7 courses on their CAO? What happens for them now?
Well, we always encourage, guidance counsellors will always encourage students to fill out that level 6, 7. Unfortunately, if it wasn't on this year, their only option now in regards to CAO is available places. So they should get on to available places. But sadly, it's too late to apply for this year, but they can apply for next year or for available places.
Yeah, and even if a student hasn't even applied for the CAO bulletin now, maybe they didn't apply before the 1st of July, they can actually still apply now to the available places. Have a little look at the list. It'll cost them about €45 if they haven't applied before. And if they have applied, the available places is actually free.
There may also be students that were too late in filling out their CAO applications as well. Would private colleges be the route now for them to apply to directly?
Private colleges is a really good option, I think. A lot of the private colleges have courses that feed into market shortages. Like I know DBS, for example, have some courses that have been funded by the government. So they're lower fees, €1,500 a year. And they're in things like big data and IT shortages.
We can often get a little bit of an idea, well, I must do my degree in this place. But in fact, that's not necessarily so, because the focus is on a qualification that is quality assured and that's on the national framework of qualifications. So I think, a better understanding of that will help, and people might feel less disappointed because there may be more.
Absolutely. And picking up what Carmel said there, a lot of these courses are even accredited. Say psychology and DBS is accredited by the Psychological Society of Ireland. I know the law degree in Griffith College, you can go on to King's Inns, you can go on and do your exams in Law Society of Ireland. So there's, just because they're private colleges doesn't mean they're any less of an option. They're QQI accredited, they're accredited by the societies as well. So absolutely have a look at private colleges. And Aoife said, in the long run, they're actually not as expensive as you might think.
And I think also, as feeding on from them being accredited, if a student really has their heart set on going to a particular university, they could go to a private college first and then do a master's in their preferred university. And it mightn't necessarily take them any longer at all because of the DBS or the private colleges being 3-year degrees a lot of the time. So I think it's an excellent option.
A lot of students might also be moving up to Dublin, or maybe they would like to go to college in Dublin. For those that may not have got their option maybe in Dublin, there are also other options as well in different parts of the country as well, with perhaps lesser points as well, where students can go to study, isn't there?
Well, I'm a big culture, so I am. So I'm very much for studying down the country, as they'd say in Dublin. But yeah, there's great opportunities. If you look at something as close to Dublin as Maynooth University, you have new universities now in Cork and Kerry, in Limerick and Westmeath. So all these new technological universities are also a great opportunity for students. And again, you're coming out with a university degree at the end of it. The points, as you rightly said, Ola, are probably not as high. And you can do your computer sciences, your businesses, whatever it is. Even Waterford IT offer arts courses, things like that. So absolutely have a look, explore your options outside of Dublin as well. You're dead right.
And for worried parents also listening in, how can they help their appeals process and the CAO system?
I think it's really important to, first of all, support your students and not put them under any additional pressure. So being supportive in these days, I think, is really helpful. With regarding the appeals, you can apply to view your script. So that is on Saturday. So you apply before this evening at 5 o'clock. And then you can view your script on Saturday, either in school for the ones that were marked on paper or online for the ones that were marked online. And then after that, you can apply to appeal. So again, you're appealing really the written papers most of all. I think the appeal for the accredited grade system wasn't very robust, but for the written papers, it's a very robust, transparent, fair system of appeal.
Yeah, and I'd say, just to echo what Aoife said, it's important for the parents to be there and try and encourage as best as possible, and just to reassure that there are lots of options and opportunities. And I know they mightn't want to hear that, but just to let them know there is help out there, whether it's the National Parents Council for Post-Primary School. They have a brilliant helpline. I know the Irish Independent sponsor that, and to get in contact with them, because they mightn't want to hear for the parents, but just to give them different options. Your guidance counsellors there's helplines there. We could even contact universities and colleges if needs be, but there's lots of options and opportunities. And if I'm a parent, I kind of familiarise myself with the appeal system that Aoife laid out there, to know kind of what's coming up, any little dates or deadlines that we must know, and just to kind of remind your son and daughter that this is coming up, and let's have a look at this.
At the round 2 offers, how does that work and what goes beyond that?
Yeah, so round 2 happens on the 20th of September. So basically, if there's 50 places on a course and we've 200 applicants, those 50 top point applicants will get the offers first, and they'll have a certain deadline, which is 13th of September, to accept their place by. So let's say, for example, 48 out of the 50 accept their place by that deadline. Now, the other 2 places left over then will go into the second round, and we'll look further down the list of our applicants and see who has the next highest points in round 2, and they'll be offered the place. Now, it's important to note for students that if you've accepted a course in round 1, you can still be offered another one higher on your CAO list in subsequent rounds. And in fact, you can decide then, do I want to keep the course I accepted in round 1, or do I want to take the course I'm now being offered in round 2, 3, or 4, whichever it may be? So you can have that decision then, which is crucial for students to know.
So I think we always stress that we'd really recommend that students accept their offer today, because treat it as if it's your last, because you've nothing to lose by accepting it except getting yourself a little bit more time. So really, we always encourage students to accept that offer.
Yeah, and just to note that, in round 1, there's generally colleges fill about 98% of their places in round 1. So like Eva said, accept today. So because there might not be a round 2, 3, 4, or 5 offer. So to make sure you've accepted what you've been offered today.
And I think then in accepting that, and if you're not sure about that offer in particular, while I agree with the advice, absolutely accept it. And then maybe take a little bit of time. And I think that's where people can, parents can help, and career guidance and friends can help in having a look perhaps at the other options, rather than just diving into something that you only half want. And then you say to yourself then when you're halfway through the year, I didn't want this at all. And you walk away, and that's never good, feeling that kind of sense of disillusionment halfway through the first year in college. So it might be worthwhile standing back and having a think, and to remember that there are loads of options out there, and plenty of people out there to help you find those options.
And Colette, what would your advice be to students that are struggling on what course suits them best and what they're most passionate about? Students,
you see, have spent a lot of time working with career guidance counsellors, and have, I'm hoping, put down the courses in their order that they got. So if they got a course that is less that they're less than enthusiastic about, yes, accept it. Have a think. And maybe there are other ways of getting to where their actual passion course is, if you like, where they really want to go. We've covered a few of those today and where the possible options are.
That's it for this episode of the Going to College podcast series. And I want to thank my guests, Donnchadh O'Mahony, Aoife McArdle, and Colette Harrison for joining me on the show. I'll be back next week to discuss the return to campus for students and getting the most college years with lots of practical advice and tips. So do join me then. Don't forget you can listen and subscribe to the series on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Independent.ie, or wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm Ola Majekodunmi, and thanks for listening.
The Going to College Education Podcast, in association with Quality and Qualifications Ireland, QQI, promoting quality and accountability in Irish education and training.